Okay. So Stanley says he can wear his cowboy outfit, but no, Mr. Dart said, you'll have to wear the disguise I have chosen. From a closet he took a white dress with a blue sash and a pair of shiny little pointy shoes. And a wig and a stick. The wig was made of blonde hair, long and done in ringlets. The stick was carved at the top and it had a blue ribbon on it. This is a shepherdess disguise, said Mr. Dart. You look like a painting that belongs in the main hall. We do not have cowboy paintings in the main hall. Well, Stanley was so disgusted he could hardly speak. I shall look like a girl. That's what I shall look like. I wish I'd never had my idea. But he was a good sport, so he put on the outfit. Back in the main hall, Mr. Dart helped Stanley climb up into the empty picture frame. Stanley was able to stay in place because Mr. Dart had cleverly put 4 small spikes in the wall. 1 for each hand and 1 for each foot. The frame was a perfect fit, and against the wall Stanley looked just like a picture. Except for one thing, Mr. Dart said. Shepherdesses are supposed to look happy. They smile at their sheep and at the sky. Your face, Stanley, is not happy. Well, Stanley tried hard to get a faraway look in his eyes and to smile a little bit. Mr. Dart stood a few feet back, stared at him for a moment. Well, it may not be art, but I know what I like. He went off to make certain that other parts of Stanley's plan were being taken care of, and Stanley was left alone. It was very dark in the main hall. A little bit of moonlight came through the windows, and Stanley could just about make out the most expensive painting in the world on the opposite wall. He felt as though the bearded man with the violin and the lady on the couch and the half-horse person and the winged children were all waiting, as he was, for something to happen. Time passed and he got tireder and tireder. Anyone would be tired at this late hour, especially if he had to stand in a picture frame balancing on little spikes. Well, maybe they won't come, Stanley thought. Maybe the sneak thieves won't come at all. The moon went behind a cloud. The main hall was pitch dark. It seemed to get quieter too with the darkness. There was absolutely no sound at all. Stanley felt the hair on the back of his neck prickle beneath the golden curls of the wing. The creaking sound came from right out in the middle of the main hall, and even as he heard it, Stanley saw in the same place a tiny yellow glow of light. The creaking came again, and the glow got bigger. A trap door had opened up in the floor, and 2 men came up through it into the hall. Stanley understood everything at once. These must be the sneak thieves. They had a secret trapdoor entrance into the museum from outside, and that's why they had never been caught. And now tonight they were back to steal the most expensive painting in the world. He kept very still in his picture frame and listened to the sneak thieves. "This is it, Max," said the first one. "This is where we art robbers pull a sensational job while the civilized community sleeps." "Right, Luther," said the other man. "In all this great city there is no one to suspect us." "Ha!" thought Stanley Lambchop. "That's what you think. The sneak thieves put down their lantern and took the world's most expensive painting off the wall. "What would we do to anyone who tried to capture us, Max?" the first man asked. "We'd kill him. What else?" his friend replied. Well, that was enough to frighten Stanley, and he was even more frightened when Luther came over and stared at him. "This sheep girl," Luther said. "I thought sheep girls were supposed to smile. Max, this one looks scared." Just in time, Stanley managed to get a faraway look in his eyes and to smile, sort of. "You're crazy, Luther," Max said. "She's smiling, and what a pretty little thing she is too." Well, that made Stanley furious. He waited until the sneak thieves had turned back to the world's most expensive painting, and then he shouted in his loudest, most terrifying voice, "Police! Police! Mr. Dart! The sneak thieves are here!" Well, the sneak thieves looked at one another. "Max," said the first one very quietly, "I think I heard the sheep girl yell." "I think I did too," said Max in a quivery voice. "Oh boy, yelling pictures. We both need a rest." "You'll get a rest all right," shouted Mr. Dart, rushing in with the chief of police and a lot of guards and policemen behind him. "You'll get arrested, that's what, ha ha." The sneak thieves, were too mixed up by Mr. Dart's joke and too frightened by the policeman to put up a fight. Before they knew it, they'd been handcuffed and led away to jail. The next morning, in the office of the chief of police, Stanley Lambchop got a medal. The day after that, his picture was in all the newspapers. For a while, Stanley Lambchop was a famous name. Everywhere that Stanley went, people stared and pointed at him. He could hear them whisper, "Over there, Harriet, over there, it's Stanley Lambchop, the one who caught the sneak thieves." But after a few weeks, the whispering and staring stopped and people had other things to think about. Stanley didn't mind. It was fun being famous, but enough was enough. And then there came a further change, and it wasn't a pleasant one. People began to laugh and make fun of him and shouting things like "super skinny" and rude things about the way he looked. He told his parents how he felt. It's the other kids are mine mostly because they don't like me anymore because I'm different, flat. "Oh, shame on them," said Mrs. Lambchop. "It's wrong to dislike people for their shapes or their religion or the colour of their skin." "I know," Stanley said. "Only maybe it's impossible for everybody to like everybody." "Perhaps, but they can try." Later on, Arthur was woken up by the sound of Stanley crying. "Are you okay? Go away. Don't be mad at me. You're mad because you got you tangled in the tree the other day, I guess." "Skip it, will you?" Stanley said. "I'm not mad, just go away." "Please, let's be friends." "Oh, Stanley, tell me what's wrong." Stanley waited for a long time before he spoke. "Thing is, I'm just not happy anymore. I'm tired of being flat. I want to be a proper boy again, like the other people." "Oh, Stanley." "Don't talk about what I just said," Stanley told him. "I don't want the folks to worry. It would make it worse." "You're brave," Arthur said. "You really are." The two brothers sat in the darkness, just being friends. And then suddenly, though he was not even trying to think, Arthur had an idea. He jumped up and turned on the light and ran to the storage box where the toys and things were kept. He began to rummage around. Stanley sat to watch. Arthur flung aside a football, some soldiers, aeroplanes, wooden blocks. Aha! He'd found what he wanted, a bicycle pump. He held it up, and he and Stanley looked at each other. "Okay, but take it easy," Stanley said, and he put the long end of the pump in his mouth, clamped his lips around so no air could escape. "I'll go slowly. If it hurts, wiggle your hand at me." First, nothing happened, except Stanley's cheeks bulged a little. But his hand didn't wiggle, so Arthur kept going. Then suddenly, Stanley's top half began to swell. It's working," said Arthur, pumping away. Stanley spread his arms so the air could get around him more easily. His pyjamas began to burst, pop, pop, pop. In a moment he was all rounded, his head, his body, his legs, but not his foot. His foot stayed flat, just his right one. Arthur stopped pumping. "It's like trying to do those long balloons. Maybe a shake would help." Stanley shook his foot, and then with a little whooshing sound, it matched the left one. "Oh, thank you, Arthur, thank you so much." The brothers were shaking hands when Mr. and Mrs. Lamb Chop strode into the room. "We heard you," said Mr. Lamb Chop. "Up and talking when you ought to be sleeping." "George, Stanley's round again." "I did it," said Arthur. "I blew him up." Everyone was terribly excited and happy. Mrs. Lamb Chop made hot chocolate, and several toasts were drunk to Arthur for his cleverness. And when the party was over, Mr. and Mrs. Lamb Chop tucked the boys back in their beds, kissed them good night. "Good night, Stanley and Arthur," said Stanley and Arthur. It had been a very tiring day, and all of the lamb chops were soon fast asleep. The end. There, well, we hope you enjoyed that. What a fun story. Very far-fetched. I think it's very likely you're going to wake up flat one morning, but that's all part of the fun, isn't it? With a fantasy story like that. And he certainly had some adventures, didn't he, old Flat Stanley? Well, we hope you enjoyed that, and we hope that you have a great week and get lots of fun, interesting things done. And Rusty and I will join you again next week. Say bye, Rusty. Bye, Rusty. Bye-bye.